Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Project Fairlady. So I thought it was about time to give you guys an update on what's been going on with the old girl. As I've alluded to in a couple of the other videos, I've been starting on the bodywork, and I'm pretty much balls deep into it at the moment. So how's it going, you might ask? Well, let's see. I reckon I'm probably about 250 to maybe even 300 hours into the bodywork. But the payoff of that is that everything is now laser straight. So I've got a few bits and pieces just down here that I've been working on. You know, various, the Twin Z components, guards, everything that can come off the car at this stage is off the car. Front bars up the very back there, rear bars down the bottom. It's all shaping up really, really well, but I must stress, guys, as you can probably tell from the amount of hours that I've said I've got into this thing, it's a lot of work going to this much effort with something like this. So where's all the work gone, Trevor, you might ask? Well, kind of everywhere, really. All the Twin Z stuff has soaked up a lot of the time, being that they're fiberglass, even though I consider them to be, you know, pretty good as far as a fiberglass component goes. They still need an absolute crap ton of work on them to get them what I consider to be perfect, you know, or as close to perfect as I can get them. So I'll run you through the process of doing the fiberglass stuff. So what you do initially, or what I've been doing, is I will block the fiberglass stuff back to take off any high spots, which you don't really need to guide coat it because it has there's an obvious difference where you are sanding, you know, the highs and the lows. It's very obvious. No need to guide coat it at that stage. So even with the initial block down of all the Twin Z stuff, there's quite a lot of highs and lows in them that need to be corrected. And what this does, it creates another problem, is when you're knocking off all the highs, you're going through the gel coat and you start to get pinholes and air bubbles everywhere on the surface of it because, you know, you're breaking through that smooth coating on the outside. But you really have to do it, otherwise, you know, you're going to be filling up to those highs and you'll be putting a lot more filler in than you really need to if you take the highs off. But then you've got all the pinholes and stuff to deal with, which isn't that big a deal. It's just a little bit time consuming and a bit of a pain in the bum. And with this sort of stuff, you know, you're sort of blocking it down, and then you'll go through and say, you know, you'll do a coat of filler and try and fill up all the lows. You know, then you've got to sand it and prep it as best as you can. Then prime it, and I'm using epoxy primer on everything. Prime it, guide coat it again, block it down again, find any bits that you may have missed here and there, make more repairs, depending on what it is, either prime it, guide coat it again, block it down again, and so on and so forth, and the process just continues through everything. And all of the Fairlady's original parts is the same deal with those, like the guards down there. They get primed, blocked down, knock off all the highs, go through, put filler in the lows, prime it, block it, guide coat it, block it down again, etc., etc. So all of this stuff here, including the body shell up there, you can probably see how straight that is. I'm not sure, but you can see it in person that it's absolutely perfect. But this process just goes on until basically you're at a point where there are no defects when you block down the guide coat on the component that it is. You know, and that's all you can do. You just keep going until there are no defects. And so far, I reckon all of these components have been blocked down, primed, filled, blocked, probably about 4 times, I reckon, for each piece to get to a point where on that final block down there are no defects. Some bits and pieces have required a little bit of extra effort, Both the bars, the front and rear bars, have required a bit more effort. That's due to my modifications that I've made on them, you know, and all that sort of stuff. The rear bar, you know, it's got those cutouts in it. It's been completely modified. The bottom's been chopped off, and the aluminium piece that I made for the bottom is now bonded to the bumper bar. So there's been quite a bit of bonding going on, and that's bonding, not bondage. So this is what I've been using to do all the bonding. 3M 550FC polyurethane adhesive. Seems to be pretty good stuff. Been recommended to me as the go-to thing for this sort of stuff. The front bar over there, it's soaked up a ton of work. Well, the bars in general have, particularly the front one. These old plastic bumper bars, they tend to get a lot of woofs in them, you know, a lot of ripples and woofs in them over time, because they were quite early in the generation of plastic bumper bars, this stuff, and it's quite a sort of a thick, heavy, softish kind of a plastic compared to what they use in modern bumper bars on vehicles, and it tends to deform fairly easily, and particularly if they've been stored badly or there's been something sitting against it, it will create imperfections in the bar. So all of these bars I've been, and you probably saw it with the bottom one when I made a bit of a video on repairing that, but even the front bar, it's got quite a few hours in just working it with a heat gun to try and you know, fix the basis even more, like just trying to pop out little depressions and just try and get as much shape back into it as I can before starting to then block it down and you know, work with fillers and stuff like that. And when I say work with fillers over all this sort of stuff, it's all you know, kind of skim coats. There's not really any major thicknesses of filler anywhere. You just have to put a lot of it on over a lot of it to be able to block it down perfect. So even the slightest deviation in the surface of a very, very minuscule amount will show up. So you really have to be very particular with it all in order to get a really, really good outcome. And anyone who works with this sort of stuff, any guys who work in the panel beating industry, smash repair, car restorations, you know, they'll all tell you the same sort of thing, which is why all this kind of stuff, if you want to go to the level of like a professional restoration, why it is so expensive. It's just because there is so many hours involved in getting stuff to that high standard. But anyway, it's all going really, really well. The body shell is perfect, and you know, all this stuff I'm really, really happy with. So where it's all sitting at the moment, I've finally, and this happened yesterday, I did the front bar yesterday, I've finally got everything to the same point. Now, it's all sitting here in urethane high fill primer. So what's going to happen now is all of this stuff is going to be blocked down again. And when I say blocked down, I mean with, like, you know, long blocks and special blocks. I've bought and made many, many, many blocks to do this with. I've been using probably, I don't know, at least 10 different blocks to get, you know, big runs and small runs and curves and stuff like that. Because having the right equipment, and particularly sanding blocks, really makes a difference on the outcome of what you get in the end. Like if you're trying to do it all with one or two blocks, you just won't be able to do a good enough job in all the areas that you need to. Sure, you'll be able to do it, but, you know, it may not be what you really want in the end. And a simple thing like making some blocks, all that sort of stuff. And this is just some of the blocks that I've been using, guys. Some of them I've bought, some of them I've made. Things like this, like tracking down the right density of foam and stuff to use to make blocks that can conform to particular shapes on the vehicle. This is just one that I was using on down the side of the vehicle, on the doors and stuff, to give me sort of a final shaping of the doors in the vertical direction, whereas most of the block work's been done horizontally, working in X patterns up and down the doors. but just to make sure that I haven't sort of got any horizontal grooves that I've created from doing that, because it is, you know, you can get it perfect in one direction depending on your technique. My technique's probably not that good. I need to you know, go back over things and correct myself a bit, just purely because of my you know, lack of match fitness with this sort of stuff. But yeah, that's just a typical sort of a block that I've made compared to another one in that side. That's a Dura block you know, that's a stiff Dura block that's used for, you know, sort of going vertically, or sorry, that's used for going sort of horizontally and rolling over shapes and kind of making, you know, your X's with and all that sort of stuff. It's just, you know, it's just a matter of working out your techniques and what you can use and how you're going to approach things. Really makes a big difference on your outcome. You know, things like this, it's a lot thinner. Another one that I've made, and you can see it's on a little bit of a curve there. I think, I don't know where I was using this, somewhere that had sort of a slight curve with it. Again, most of the blocking down is done with really hard, firm blocks, and then you basically work into those little complicated areas, which is where you then move into things like this, where you can kind of get a smoother, more blended work over, say, a compound curve that's running in two directions, just so that you know, it turns out really good. Alright, so as I say, all this is going to be blocked down again. So what I'm going to do, it's all going to be blocked down with 220, and then re-guide coated, and then blocked down with 400. The same with the body of the car, and then it's going to be, all this stuff's going to be reassembled back onto the vehicle, and all the alignments checked again, and make sure that everything sits perfectly and it's all, you know, it's all how I sort of expect it to be. And then I'm going to move on to other parts of the vehicle. At this stage, I haven't done the back hatch, and I haven't done inside the doors, and I haven't done any of the jambs and all that sort of stuff. And obviously at some point all the glass is coming out of the car, because as you can see there, glass is still in it. I'm really using the glass at this stage just to sort of mask over, to keep all the crap out of the car, because you do generate so much dust doing this sort of stuff. Yeah, so this is not the end of it. Like, it's, a lot of it's done, you know, it's sort of we're on the downhill run now, but there is still quite a bit more to do. I've got to do a lot more work on my second bonnet as well, that's got all the vents in it. I'm thinking about welding the vents into the bonnet, and I don't know, I just got to get that out and look at it a bit more and suss it out. But obviously this bonnet that's on the car at the moment, the standard one, is pretty good. I think it needs a couple of real little minor things, but other than that, it's pretty good. Front bar, I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. We'll go over there and have a bit more of a look at it, eh? So this in particular, as I say, it's soaked up a lot of work, but the payoff at the end is, I'm really happy with how it's kind of turned out. Things like this section up here, you know, the top of the nose there, getting that perfectly flat is something I quite often see when I'm looking at other Z32s that have been painted and everything, is, you know, you often see waves in, you know, that part of the plastic on the bumper bar, and many other spots as well. This is another area of concern. Across here, where the front guard meets, it's another thing that you can always spot on other cars. Just they're a very bad fit there, because the bumper bar isn't actually real great from the factory in that area, and it does need some work to correct it. So if you just kind of paint over it, it'll end up looking terrible. Other things that I've done to this, there were areas where, like, say, for example, under here, where the plastic in the bumper bar is kind of sagged down a bit, and then when you get down really low, you can see that, and it looks really shithouse. So what I've done is I've cut out some pieces of aluminium, and I've bonded them with the polyurethane adhesive that I'm using there to that, and then clamped them all together, and I've taken out all of those deviations in the front bar. Same thing here with this main section under here. It does have periodic fasteners in it, which kind of keep it straight, but over time the bars just get these massive waves in them between the fasteners, and there's no way to really correct that other than put in more fasteners, which is very, very hard to do because of the location that it's in. It's almost impossible to drill holes and to get things to be able to do up and squash things together. So what I've done through there is I've separated it all, and I've put a ton of polyurethane in between the piece that sits in behind it, the heavy plastic piece that's used to strengthen it all, and then put all the fasteners back in, and then clamped right along there until it was dead straight, and let it go off. And yeah, again, it's now bloody perfect. I'll get the camera down. I'll just take it off for a second. So yeah, you can sort of see how straight that sort of the top of that lower mouth is, and also the top of those the intercooler gills on the front there. And obviously other work that's been done on this bar is to do with this Twin Z lower the lance. You'll remember from previous videos how I cut it up into 3 sections to reshape it so it fitted a lot better, because it was absolutely atrocious, how I got it. Also, this has needed quite a lot of fill work on these sides here to get those right. They were quite wavy on both sides, in both directions, this way and that way. And also, I wasn't really happy with how this all kind of blended together. So you can see that it's now, well, I guess you'd call it semi-molded. So again, this has been bonded to the front bar with polyurethane adhesive, and lots of it, like lots of it. There's no way this is coming off. And you can see here I've also molded the two together where the gills meet this. So these are actually 2 separate pieces. That's part of the original bumper bar, and this is part of the Twin Z Lance. I just wasn't happy with how this looked when it was all together. I don't think I'm going to have a problem with this cracking, just because I know there's so much urethane behind all this bonding it together, and it is so firmly attached. Plus I've used all the right products to do it. I've used bumper bar filler to mold it together with, which is like really, really flexible, and so I think it's going to be pretty good. And if it cracks, it's really only going to crack down the line of where the two go together, which would have been there anyway. There would have been a pretty horrible line. If you've ever seen these when they've been fitted, there's quite an obvious line down here between the two. And obviously these have been smoothed as well to match the rest of the car. Like they had a quite heavy kind of stone guard texture to them, which has all been sanded off, and they've obviously been like high filled and sanded and all that sort of stuff. So it all just looks pretty factory, in my opinion anyway. It just looks like a more sort of modern version of the original TT bar without jumping towards the later series bar that everyone seems to go to. Because again, I actually like the original series 1 front bars. There's just aspects of them that I didn't like, and this kind of corrects it for me. You can see there's ducts in here for the intercoolers up the top there in place of the fog lights, and obviously the hole for the sort of tow hook thing. But overall, mate, it is pretty much dead straight. So that's going to look really nice when it's all painted up, as is all of the rest of it. So that's about that, guys. Next time you see the vehicle, I should have a lot of this stuff mounted back on it, and I should be either working on the hatch, or the hatch might even already be done. There's quite a bit of work that I need to do on the doors on the inside as well. The doors are all stripped apart mostly. They still have the glass in them, but other than that, all the trims and everything are off them, and the handles are out and all that sort of stuff. But I uncovered a few issues with the doors relating to a bit of dodgy work that was done to get the car compliant. It looks to me like these things have had intrusion bars put in them, probably so they meet ADRs when they were brought into the country. That was done a bit on the rough side, and to get the intrusion bars in, they actually damaged a couple of sections of the door, and then did some really shitty repairs to the stuff that they've damaged, which I'm going to correct and do properly. I've also found quite a lot of cracking around the seatbelt mounts on the doors. Something to look out for if you guys have these early models with the seatbelts mounted into the doors. I found, as I say, quite a lot of cracking around the mounts, so they'll all need to be welded up and reinforced in those areas. Anyhow, just thought you'd like to see what's going on. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for stopping by the Aussie Shed. Always a bloody pleasure to have you here. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Remember to subscribe to the channel. And as always, guys, I'll bloody well see you on the next one. Cheers.